Good evening, everybody. Thank you and welcome to the first meeting of the new council on the 28th of November 2022. My name is Matthew Morgan. I'm the CEO of the City of Port Lincoln, and it's a pleasure to preside over the meeting until such time that the new mayor is sworn in and will then take charge of the meeting. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Bungala people, the traditional owners of the land we meet on today, their continuing connection to land, sea, culture and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people within our community. The City of Port Lincoln acknowledges and respects the diversity of cultural heritage and beliefs within our community. As a council, we are committed to serving the best interests and needs of all people in our city, and we endeavour to discharge our duties conscientiously to the best of our ability. The first part of this meeting that I'll preside over will be largely procedural, and we'll go through a few items. You'll hear me for a few minutes, but not a minute longer, and then you'll be able to hear from the elected members. Firstly, just acknowledge the elected members that are present, the members of staff, the members of the community who have joined us this evening, and also Mr. Derry Muldries, who's joined us to certify and witness the oath to the elected members this evening. First item on the agenda, 3.1, general report on the first meeting of the new council. So congratulations to the members of the elected council who have been re-elected or have joined council as a result of the 2022 elections. I would also like to acknowledge the work over the years of outgoing Mayor Brad Flaherty and retiring councillors Faye Davis, Peter Jolly and Jeff Dodd for their commitment to serving the community at this level. This council meeting, being the first meeting of the new council, is primarily structured around considering and addressing the required governance and procedural matters, noting that there are, however, several matters that require council consideration tonight at the end of the agenda. A range of activities have been planned as part of the broader council induction over the coming days and weeks to inform the new council on the various status of projects and initiatives that are currently underway. In terms of process, I will just table the election results and then we'll go through the oath of office for each of the elected members. Once we've done that, we will ask the chamber to consider leave of the meeting to suspend meeting procedures for up to half an hour so that family members and members of the community can take photos with the elected members before we get into the business of council. So we'll have that opportunity shortly to take photos with those important to you. Yeah, everyone can sit down. Yes, thank you. More important business, yes. Okay, item 3.2, candidates elected and declarations. Now, the purpose of this report is purely to table the official notification of the outcome and results of the 2022 local government elections for the City of Port Lincoln, as provided by the returning officer Mick Sherry from the Electoral Commission of South Australia. So the provisional results were declared on the 12th of November, and the final official results were received on Thursday, the 17th of November 2022. So the result of the election is summarised as, for the mayoral election, one vacancy, and Mayor Diana Mislov was elected. Congratulations, Mayor. And we had 9 vacancies for the area councillor positions. And I'll read out the names of the new elected members of council. So we've got Robin Ralsell, Valerie Staunton, Andrea Jane Broadfoot, Peter Malcolm Lynn, Jack Ritchie, Shania Richards, who is an apology this evening and will not be able to join us, Dylan Cowley, Lillian Pointer, and Karen Hollenby. Can we give them a round of applause? Okay, so that's the official part with the declaration of the election results. We now move on to item 3.3 on the agenda, which is the Mayor and Councillors' declarations. Now, we have Derry Moldridge, who has kindly joined us this evening, and we'll go through the elected members one by one, who will come up to the front. They'll take their oath of office. That'll be witnessed by Derry. And then there'll be a moment for each of them to have a few words as they present. However, before we get into that, it is my honour to invite Mayor Diana Mislov to undertake her oath of office, after which I'll present the mayoral chains.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. CEO. And I, Diana Mislov, having been elected or appointed to the office of a member of the City of Port Lincoln, undertake to faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of office in the public interest to the best of my judgment and abilities and in accordance with the Local Government Act 1999.
Thank you.
Not mine, minus mine.
We're very efficient in town, so you can see we like to kill multiple birds with. We don't like killing birds, but we like to do multiple things at the same time. So official and photographs. We'll now present the mayoral chains. All right. Yeah. The mayor will now preside over the meeting.
Thank you, everyone. And just before inviting the other councillors to take their oath, I would like to say a couple of words. I'll try and keep it short. This is a momentous occasion and I have some acknowledgements to make. Firstly, as the CEO has done, I acknowledge the Bangla people, the traditional owners of the land we meet on, and offer my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Together with them, Port Lincoln lives in my heart. I acknowledge my European migrant heritage, in particular my Dutch mother, Joanna, joining us tonight, and my Croatian father, Marko, watching over these proceedings. I'm also delighted that my family are here to witness this. Marko, Stephen and Tanya, Joanna and Aaron, my nephew Marko, and members of my wider Croatian and Australian community family. We live in a proud multicultural community and I'm honoured to represent each and every one of you. I acknowledge all those in the gallery tonight and those that could not be here for one reason or another, but are here in spirit. I recognise all those who have passed too early and I thank God for looking after them and all of us, particularly my dad, late husband John and Dennis and Vinko Longan. I hope that I might also inspire others to be tenacious, challenge boundaries and believe in themselves, to volunteer and invest in giving of their time to our community and accept roles on committees, boards and council to serve and be part of creating a vision for our lifestyle and our city. In 1921, Mr. Joseph Scoresby Shepherd was elected the first mayor of Port Lincoln. 101 years later, we have our first female elected mayor. This title comes with great responsibility and I will work hard to do this. I acknowledge the many mentors I have had, both male and female, and particularly the women that have inspired me on council, including the 3 women who have previously run for mayor, namely Mrs. Anne Kelsey, Mrs. Mary Clark, Nee Boyle, and Mrs. Margaret Tilsner. These women were former elected members of council and, like me, were unsuccessful in our bid to be mayor until now. I'm humbled by the results of the council election and thank Port Lincoln for entrusting me with the role of mayor for the next term of council. I have a great many people to thank and many are in this room. However, I will thank them all separately as we simply don't have time to go through that list right now. I hope they all know how important they are to me. I would like to mention former councillor Graham Mantle. Graham gave me a council pin that belonged to him. It has 2 sides, one that says councillor and the other mayor. He hoped to one day pin that to me, and tonight I wear it proudly for him as he can't be here. Port Lincoln has elected 9 other council members to serve them, and it is wonderful to see such community-minded individuals nominate for council this term. We're very fortunate to have a diverse and dynamic council, and I believe there's some other firsts also. Councillor Shania Richards, who's unable to be with us tonight, is the youngest member to be elected to council. And this term, I believe, will be the first time the majority of council elected members will be women, with 70% representation, increasing from 50% last term and 40% the term before that. There will be some challenging times ahead for council, and at the same time, opportunities to rethink the way we deliver services and look to grow our economy, support our industries and leverage our position with state and federal government. I'm excited by the opportunity to represent and serve our community and look forward to being part of a new, refreshed and dynamic council, working collaboratively with community and through the CEO with council staff for the best outcomes for you and Port Lincoln. We will bring community to the heart of decision making. Thank you. So I will now invite the councillors one by one to take the oath, starting with Councillor Robin Rousell. Sorry. Yes.
That's right. I, Robin Rousseau, having been elected or appointed to the office of a member of the City of Port Lincoln, undertake to faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of the office in the public interest, to the best of my judgment and ability, and in accordance with the Local Government Act 1999. Thank you. No, thank you. Don't need to. Don't hear enough of me. We'll hold it up. Thank you. Do you want to say anything? Thank you.
Want to say anything?
No, I don't think so. Thank you. Thank you for everyone for voting for me.
Councillor Valerie Staunton.
Read what I'm saying.
I, Valerie Staunton, having been elected or appointed to the office of a member of the City of Port Lincoln, undertake to faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of office in the public interest, to the best of my judgment and abilities, and in accordance with the Local Government Act 1999. I'd just like to say thank you all for voting for me and for the honour and privilege to serve our community again on council for another term. Super excited to continue my journey, and it's been a big learning curve in the first term as you welcome the new members of the council. No doubt will experience. But I'm excited and honoured to work with the community in a collaborative way, and want to keep encouraging the council to work with the city and our people in that manner. So thank you very much.
Now invite Councillor Andrea Broadfoot.
I, Andrea Broadfoot, having been elected or appointed to the office of a member of the City of Port Lincoln, undertake to faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of office in the public interest to the best of my judgment and abilities, and in accordance with the Local Government Act 1999.
And it's right here, which yeah, and that's it. Yeah, so.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you to the community for your trust in us as a group, working together for your best interests, and look forward to a younger and progressive, more diverse chamber this time round, and look forward to continuing the amazing work we have been doing. Peter Jolly said last term was his most enjoyable on council after 12 years, and I look forward to this term topping that. So really appreciate the work of Matt and the team doing a fantastic job, and we look forward to supporting Diana to follow the good work of Brad in the chair.
Now invite Councillor Peter Lynn.
I, Peter Lynn, having been elected to the office of a member of the City of Port Lincoln, undertake to faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of the office in the public interest, my best judgment and abilities, in accordance with the Local Government Act 1999.
Yeah. Yeah, you know.
Done, Dustin. Thank you to those who said, yeah, Peter Lynn, tick the box. That was, I thought, probably won't make it on this time. So it was exciting to find that. I really enjoyed the last term. I really liked the way that we looked for the big picture stuff, and sort of moved from the looking down to looking out, and being a council that was working well together. I'm really looking forward to doing that here. Love the new faces. It would be great to do that. Find out that I am a little bit of a rat bag, and that's but really, I'm looking forward to the council moving from being that little country town to being that progressive regional city. That to me is something that's been going round and round with the council. I think that's where we should be heading. Thank you.
I invite Councillor Jack Ritchie to take the oath.
Thanks for that. I, Jack Ritchie, having probably wore my glasses up there, have been elected or appointed to the office of a member of the City of Port Lincoln Council, undertake to faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of office in the public interest to the best of my ability and best of my judgment and abilities, and in accordance with the Local Government Act 1999.
Yeah, looking this way down. Depend on the phone. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, nailed it.
Thanks, and very honoured to be given the opportunity again to serve the community on council. It's been an absolute pleasure to be an elected member of the last council, and looking forward to this term and with a wonderful group of people as well. So it's going to be wonderful. Thank you.
I now invite Councillor Dylan Cowley to please take the oath. Yeah.
Sorry. I, Dylan Cowley, having been elected or appointed to the office of a member of the City of Port Lincoln, undertake to faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of the office in the public interest, to the best of my judgment and abilities, in accordance with the Local Government Act of 1999. There's nothing that I can really say that hasn't already been said. I'd like to thank God, and I'd like to thank everybody who voted, not just for myself, but for everybody who has been elected. I think we have a fantastic team, and I think it's going to be a fantastic 4 years. Stay tuned.
Now invite Councillor Lillian Pointer to please take the oath.
I, Lillian Pointer, having been elected or appointed to the office of a member of the City of Port Lincoln, undertake to faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of office in the public interest, to the best of my judgment and abilities, and in accordance with the Local Government Act 1999.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who put their faith in me and voted me for the term for this council. Thank you.
I'd now like to invite Councillor Karen Hollenby to please.
I, Karen Hollenby, have been elected or appointed to the office of a member of the City of Port Lincoln, undertake to faithfully and impartially fulfil the duties of office in the public interest, to the best of my judgment and abilities, and in accordance with the Local Government Act 1999.
Yeah. Actually see him. The other ones. Now I can see him.
It's well done.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Not really, but I do have 129 people to thank, and also all of the people that voted me as first runner-up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, councillors, and thank you to the gallery. Our very first order of business this evening is a recommendation before council to suspend the meeting procedures for a period of up to 30 minutes to allow for photographs and discussions with members of family and community to celebrate the swearing in of the new council.
So I believe I'd need to look for a mover. Thank you, councillor Ritchie, and seconded councillor Staunton. And is that, we have a show of hands, please? And that's carried. Thank you. So I would ask that we take 30 minutes
Yep.
now to spend time with your family or friends, have a break, and we'll reconvene in 30 minutes.
Yep. Call it back.
Did you want me Yeah, but if we could just encourage the ones that are good, so we can do it right.
Thanks, everyone. Are we able to comment on that 30?
declaration of conflict of interest. Are any councillors prepared to declare any interest in any of the agenda items? Councillor Staunton?
13.5 conflict of interest with the Chamber of Commerce road closure for the Christmas pageant. I will leave the room for that because my name is on the application.
Thank you. We've got the paperwork. Yeah, thank you. Any other declarations?
I've got a declaration of a general conflict of interest in 16.1 in the confidential item. And I'll stay in the meeting. I'll fill in the paperwork.
Thank you. Any other, councillor Ritchie? Sorry.
I have a general conflict of interest with agenda item 7.1. I'll remain in the room, but that's just really where I work. And
have you completed the paperwork as well? Thank you.
And here's what was prepared in the other.
Sorry, councillor Ritchie, were you also?
Yes, a general conflict of interest with 13.5 in that I'm a member of the committee, but I'll remain in the room, not vote.
And it's an exemption.
Point, 3, the theatre lease. I've got a general conflict of interest and I will actually leave the room. Family friends.
Thank you. Yeah. And you have the paperwork as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Any other conflicts of interest?
No.
Thank you. Is there something that you would like assistance with, councillor?
Oh, we're just talking about
yeah,
whether, because Dylan actually gets paid by West Coast Youth and Community Support,
which is a homelessness support service.
it's probably is a material conflict rather than a general conflict.
What's it's in relation to item 7.1?
It's the lease on the, is it the lease on the?
7.1 is a question on notice.
Oh,
That's a question on notice. Yeah, so
yeah,
That's fine.
yeah,
yeah, you're fine.
sorry.
Was that perhaps quoted incorrectly, or is it 7.1 that you feel that you have a conflict of interest with?
Yeah, just the general one, right? Not a
Right.
material one.
Okay. So moving along, our next item of business is the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. This was a meeting held on the 17th of October and copies have been supplied. Is there any discussion required or any questions? If Councillor Rosa, you'd like to move it, thank you. And Councillor Lynn seconding. Are we all in favour? Thank you. Again, the confirmation of minutes of the special council meeting held on Thursday, the 20th of October. Again, if I could call for a mover.
Yeah.
Councillor Broadfoot. And a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Staunton. And carried. And have we got a all in favour? Thank you. Carried.
It does.
Get the hang of this in a
Yep.
minute. or 10. All right, so moving on, agenda item 6, adjourned items, there are nil. Agenda item 7.1 is from Councillor Staunton, a question on notice regarding housing shortage in Port Lincoln. I note that there was an attachment and this is just a very simple answer there, so I might pass to the CEO and see if
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the questions in the agenda, so a written response has been provided through the Development and Regulatory Services Department that will go into the minutes. short answer for this is that there is no role for council to play in temporary approvals or approvals for development. And there's a bit more detail to that. So effectively becomes a planning matter. Planning sits outside the remit of council as a decision-making body in that regard. So I guess looking forward, I think, as we'll see in the coming weeks, housing and the recommendation to develop a targeted housing strategy will be one of the key focuses coming out of the economic development strategy. And I think there'll be a range of things that we'll need to look at and consider within that. I think the best advice that we can give anyone who's currently looking at a situation where they may have a granny flat or or looking to develop a granny flat is that it really needs to be assessed on a case-by-case basis. So retrospective approvals, particularly for existing infrastructure, is challenging at times. But I guess the simple answer there is there really isn't a mechanism at the moment for council to provide a temporary approval for existing infrastructure that's there, or to look at, effectively a moratorium, I guess, on existing buildings that are being built potentially without development. But again, the response there is more detailed. But I guess the takeaway is also that there will be a focus on looking at housing, probably short and medium term housing strategies in the next 12 months through to probably 3 to 4 years. Not sure if that.
Through the chair, this was raised at the Chamber of Commerce as an issue, particularly in that circumstance, in regards to not being able to get staffing housing for them to come and fix the staffing issues, which they're getting. And another, at the end of the meeting, someone else raised that there was empty housing, like granny flat type things, that could potentially be a solution, but because they can't be approved, I recognise that it's not council's role in planning. So I could just investigating if there's something else council can do to ease the issue community are facing at the moment, which is in a crisis. Some of the people homeless and just can't get rentals or sales, or whether this is something that we can be pushing up to state government, or and as mentioned, it's on the agenda, but it's a crisis now that we need to seek a solution.
Yeah. So I think in response to the immediate question that's there, I think anyone who has an existing piece of infrastructure on their property and is seeking retrospective approval really needs to approach Development of Regulatory Services from a retrospective application perspective, which would need to be based on a case-by-case basis. That I don't think there can be a blanket rule.
Yeah.
And I dare say that there isn't the mechanism under the framework for the regional assessment manager to provide a blanket rule for that. So I think that's the first takeaway in relation to the immediate issue that was asked through the question. I think moving forwards again, any new applications would need to be case by case. But this is certainly something that we can, I guess, look at and seek to escalate if it's appropriate to escalate. And I think one of the other elected members has also advised me during the day that there has been some conversation with the local member for state parliament here as well, in potential to some of the provisions around multiple dwellings under separate roof lines and whether it's under one roof line, etc. So there is some work being done. I think the lens that we'll need to look at, and this is the approach that we'll take through the economic development strategy, and when we specifically break that down to housing availability, but then also affordability, is looking at all of the work that's already being done. This is not just a Port Lincoln issue. So there's a housing affordability toolkit that's been released through the Local Government Association, and there's also a range of other task forces around the country housing, particularly in regional areas. So I think we just need to very quickly come up to speed with where some of these other pieces of work are at, and then how we apply that locally. And I think when we look at the housing strategy situation, what we've got to look at is that global lens. Then I think we're going to have to look at what fits locally, because even though it's an issue that affects much of Australia, the solutions that we implement or we can actually facilitate and potentially work through locally will and may very well be different to what happens in other regions. So I think that'll be the focus that we'll need to work through. In the interim, again, so the response will go in the minutes, but I'd be, if there's people approaching the chamber, and we can write to the chamber, if they've got people approaching them, we would encourage them to contact the Development and Regulatory Services Department and see what would be involved in retrospective approval. And again, without knowing the details of particular dwellings, there needs to be a process of certification around plumbing, electrical, all the technical detail that goes into certifying a building as fit for purpose. As well as anyone's considering, I guess, extension.
Just a further question, Mr. CEO, the retrospective nature of approvals, would that incur any penalties or fines or any other thing? Because these dwellings are unoccupied, there would be no other penalties, or depends if what they've done in previous times, whether they've actually had residents in there or not, tenants in there or not.
Would have to, unqualified response, I'd have to seek opinion from the regional assessment manager on this, but I would suggest that there likely wouldn't be penalties or fines if it's retrospective approval. We don't have a planning compliance program that's actively seeking to identify issues and rectify them, or seek issues and impose penalties. I guess the risk would be that if someone submits a retrospective application and the building isn't fit for purpose, that there may be some remedial works the person needs to undertake. So it could be electrical, plumbing, compliance with how the building structure is being built, and when stacked up against the building code and other things there.
Thank you. So, Councillor Staunton, are you satisfied with the response from council? Thank you. And those will be in the minutes. So moving on, notice of motion, we have nil. Petitions, we have nil. Deputations and representations, we have nil. Item 11.1 is the confirmation of the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 19th of October. Councillors, is anyone prepared to move the recommendation before us without any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Lynn, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Ritchie, thank you. Councillor Ritchie. If there's no discussion or speaking to or for or against the motion, or all in favour? Thank you. Carried. Okay, so we're moving to item 12.1, the appointment of a deputy mayor. I might hand this over to the CEO to work through.
Thank you, Ms. Lobb. So procedural in nature, but I guess the report's structured in two parts. So there's two recommendations that we'll be putting to council. The first is in relation to the appointment of the deputy mayor and the term of appointment. And I think previously 2 years has worked well as a 4-year council term, and allows for, I guess, transition, succession plan, whatever you like to call it, midway through the term. So the first recommendation, and these can be moved on block, if that's the will of the chamber, would be that the term for deputy mayor is 2 years. The second is really council agreeing on the procedure and process for electing the deputy mayor. So as you can see in the agenda, the recommendation is that council determines that the method of choosing your deputy mayor be by an election process that will be conducted by a secret ballot, that nominations be called for the position of deputy mayor, and if necessary, a secret ballot be conducted using the first past the post method, and the member receiving the highest number of votes will be appointed. If 2 or more candidates receive equal highest number of votes, the CEO will draw lots, and the name of the candidate or candidates drawn will be the person or persons excluded. So to clarify, if there's more than one candidate and there's equal number of votes, the first name drawn out of the hat will be excluded. So that's the recommendation.
Does the mayor have a vote for deputy?
Correct, yeah, as a member of the chamber,
So
yeah.
there's 9 of us, so likelihood that there would be a draw.
So this evening, correct.
Unless someone does a half vote.
If you had more than 2 candidates,
Correct.
then you could get equal votes.
Yeah.
Between 3.
So can I put it to the council that we move those 2 recommendations on block? And could I please call for a mover? Thank you, councillor Rousseau. And a seconder? Thank you, councillor Pointer. So now the process to.
Just call for any discussion and the vote.
Sorry, good idea. Any discussion or questions? Okay, can I ask if we're all in favour of proceeding in that way? Thank you, carried.
Very good. Now we'll
So
call for-
we're calling for nominations for a deputy mayor. Councillor Lynn.
Deputy Mayor Ritchie, Councillor Ritchie.
Yes, so councillor Lynn nominates councillor Jack Ritchie for mayor. Deputy mayor. Deputy mayor. And councillor Ritchie, are you prepared to stand?
Yeah, accept the nomination and thanks to the council for that nomination.
And I think we need to call for a seconder for that nomination. Councillor Rousseau, thank you. And before we go any further, are there any additional nominations from the council chamber? All silent? Well, in that being the case,
bang the hammer and we're all done.
I believe that we could move on to,
Recommendation.
well, hang on, do I need to? Oh, no.
No, if
No, that's
no
it.
more
If there
nominations.
are no additional nominations, we'll move on to that next recommendation.
So on that basis, I'll just declare a conflict, seeing as Jack's my partner, and I'll leave the room.
Thank you, councillor.
And I'll
Good to see that one.
Just leave the man for a moment.
Yeah, does that create a conflict, Jack, or is that one of the procedural exceptions that we've got?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because you'll have a material conflict.
Do I declare a,
So I think you,
Understanding, yes.
I'll declare a conflict of interest then and I'll leave the room as well.
yeah,
For the vote.
We're gonna vote
Yeah.
against too.
Yeah, but he's right. Yeah.
it's not probably.
Back and forth. You did right.
Right, so the recommendation reads that the council appoint councillor Jack Ritchie to the position of deputy mayor for a term of 2 years, with a period ending at the ordinary meeting of council to be held in December 2024. Could I please have a mover for that motion? Thank you, councillor Holmby, and seconded with councillor Pointer. Are we all in favour? Yes. Are we all in favour? Thank you, unanimous, thank you.
Yes.
So that's carried. Thank you, Bonnie.
Oh, wow.
So I think please join me in congratulating Deputy Mayor Jack Ritchie.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're at 12.2. The appointment of date, time and place of council meetings. There is a recommendation also on the screen, and I will hand this again to BO to step us through.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mislov. The report before you is again largely procedural and it's around setting the meeting cycle for council. I will just note that the previous council amended the cycle for the December council meeting, so that the council meeting for December is scheduled for the second Monday of December. So if you move the recommendation
and you determine that the cycle continues to be the third Monday or third Tuesday, that will effectively overrule the previous resolution of council to set the council meeting to the 12th of December. So I guess if we want to keep the council meeting in December a week earlier this year, because of the Christmas period, we may just consider adding a third part to that recommendation that states that the ordinary meeting for December will remain on such and such a date. So that might be something to consider. It's totally at the discretion of council. I think council's made the wise decision quite a while ago to have meetings in the evenings. I think that makes it much more flexible and accessible for people. So that still recommending that we would keep with meetings in the evenings. But I guess it's up to council to determine which day of the week that meeting actually occurs.
Councillor Staunton.
I'd like to move that we hold the meeting on Tuesdays, the third Tuesday of every month, at 6:30 p.m.
Would you like to speak to that motion?
I can do, yes. I did try to ask council last term to change Tuesdays. I have other commitments in the community Monday nights, which I have to juggle between. Also, I find, have been on council and getting through these big agendas, this is a relatively small one, but to have the extra day on Monday and Tuesday to ask questions in regards to, like, get some clarification in regards to the agendas would just be beneficial, definitely to me, and I'm sure other councillors. So for those who don't know, I am in the Port Lake City Band and we rehearse on Mondays. I have tried to change band rehearsals, but unfortunately that doesn't work. But yeah, that's
Can I just clarify through the chair?
Should I this for a second?
Was that also as is? So you would be intending that the December meeting occurs on the third Tuesday, or would you? Like I said,
that would be
Tuesday the 20th.
the 12th.
The 12th, Tuesday the
Yeah,
30th.
the 12th.
So point three.
Because you got Christmas.
So if we had in, remain scheduled for, well, will
Monday.
remain scheduled.
Be
So
Monday
if
as
you-
well.
So you're happy to leave it at Monday the 12th?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, councillor Staunton. I'm just wondering whether it might be pertinent to maybe could we suspend formal proceedings so that people could have a discussion about what times and dates might suit them best?
Yep, with the leave of 2/3 of the chamber.
Would that help, or is someone prepared to second the motion and test the appetite for the date and time? Okay, thank you, councillor. Carly?
Yeah, yours, Steve.
Thank you, councillor Carly. Well, would you like to speak to that as well? No?
Both Mondays and Tuesdays are free for me, so it doesn't affect me in any way.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak for or against the motion?
I would just like to know the feeling of the meeting and how many people may be available Monday, the 19th of December instead of the 12th of December for the meeting. That was all. Just because some of us have slotted in things thinking it was the third Monday. Are we allowed to sort of get a feeling if there were people that were going to be away because of pre-planning? If that's an issue?
I feel that might have been also some staff considerations there with the lead up to Christmas, to have chosen that date as the 12th for those purposes. However, open to what councillors might feedback. Is there an appetite to change that date? Mr. CEO, do you have any opinion on the 12th versus the 19th?
Through the chair, I don't have any opinion between the 12th or the 19th. I guess just given the time between the meeting and the close down, it makes it a little bit tricky to implement anything quite quickly from the close of the council meeting. But again, it's totally the discretion of the chair. We'll work to whatever the team is.
We would need to vary the motion if that's if we were to change that date. Councillor Russell.
No, I just wanted the feel of the meeting before I did something like that. That was all. I wasn't going to. Yeah.
Just through the chair, just comment on that to answer Councillor Hassan's comment is that, yeah, definitely my preference would be for the 12th, but I understand that it would be Councillor Russell. Okay, so I thought that's one.
Prefer the 12th? Perhaps we could have a quick show of hands of who might prefer the 12th. Just for Councillor Russell. So there seems to be an appetite for the 12th.
Okay. Okay.
All right, going back to the more formal, we've had the motion moved and seconded. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against the motion?
Tuesdays is difficult for me because I teach calisthenics until about 6 on Tuesday, but it's not going to stop me from getting here on a Tuesday night at 6:30. So I just leave it and come straight.
I'd just like to speak on that as well, if I may. Monday's actually better for me with my work because I tend to travel a fair bit, but I understand that there's other people with commitments, so I might just miss meetings if it's Tuesday more frequently. But it is only once a month, so.
So on that basis, I'd like to speak against the motion. And I'd like to, yeah, and I understand we've all got commitments and travel, and some of us who have got regional roles do try and compress our travel into, you know, we work around that Monday being here, but then needing to travel. And in hearing that from Councillor Hollenby, like it's not ideal to be missing meetings. It's ideal to make the meeting at all, you know. So, yeah, I just really think it's about prioritising people's ability to be present, and I understand totally Councillor Staunton's needing to balance that with other commitments, but on that basis, I'll speak against the motion.
Okay, any other speakers for or against? There being none, we could and may. There have been a couple of speakers that haven't actually spoken for or against this motion as such, that could vary it to be Monday. They have commented on availability of the 12th, but that's the only show of hands we've had. So,
on that basis, while acknowledging the challenge that Councillor Staunton has with that, with Mondays as well on occasions, and appreciating that, and this of course came up previously, I would like to move the amendment to have it on the third Monday of every month.
just before we go on, sorry, Councillor Mitchell, I will just confer with the CEO that I am actually doing this correctly. Can you please for some assistance?
I'm looking for that. I knew that the first one would be something simple. So I think I guess the first thing is whether or not that substantially changes the intent of the motion.
Just put it.
I'm not sure it would be. So I think you'd either accept the motion, the amendment, or you just put the motion as it is and see what the chamber returns.
Accept the amendment.
You would accept the amendment. So is there a seconder for the amendment?
Is there a second? Thank you, Councillor Rousseau. So
now we start again with the speaking for and against the amendment.
It's challenging, isn't it?
That's okay. Good way to start on the deep end on a nice sort of. Well, I hope it'll be a nice compromising meeting date. It's not going to please everyone all the time, but hopefully we can work around what's best for the majority. So now we have a motion that says it's the third Monday of every month at 6:30 p.m.
but for the 12th of December, which will be the second Monday. Do I need to call for move?
Speakers for and against the
Speakers for and
amendment.
against the amendment? There being none, I will ask if we are all in favour. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7. So the motion is carried.
So the amendment motion's carried. Yep. So now we go back to the actual motion. So the motion as amended is now as written. So now we need to vote.
On the motion. Right, yeah, and I don't need any other movers and seconders?
No.
No. Thank you. So can I ask, are we all in favour of the new motion? Which is 1, 3, 6, 7. So the motion is carried.
And just one point for the minutes that it's, is it now not Deputy Mayor Ritchie, not Councillor?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ning. Thank you, and to acknowledge that, yes, it will be difficult on some occasions, and let's just do the best. Thank you.
Maybe for the next.
All right, so we're at 12.3, elected members, completion of primary and ordinary returns. I don't know that we need to have much discussion on this item. We did receive information on this through the training. There are some attachments. No, there are no attachments, I beg your pardon. But I think that council will just receive and note the report. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Cowley is moving and Councillor Hollenby is seconding that motion. Are we all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Similarly, 12.4 is about the elected members' completion of campaign donation returns. Do we need any, are there any questions or do we need any discussion on any of those items? This report is also just to be received and noted. So if I could ask for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Rousseau. And a seconder? Councillor Cowley. And are we all in favour? Carried. Thank you. 12.5, so the elected member allowances and benefits. There is no attachment, however, the recommendation is there for you all on the screen, and these determinations are made by the Remuneration Tribunal. I would suggest that they might be moved and seconded en bloc, so all three of those recommendations at the same time. Is there any queries, questions on this motion from councillors? No.
One question which I think has been clarified in the training so far is that this is we're an exception where we don't have a
conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Councillor, Deputy Mayor. Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. That's what it does.
Thank you, Councillor Staunton, and a seconder, Councillor Broadfoot. Are we all in favour? Thank you, carried. Going well. Yeah, 12.6 is the behavioural standards for council members. So there were some attachments for this one, and we did also again have this in training. I do hope everyone's had a chance to read those attachments, and there is a recommendation that they be received and duly noted. Are there any questions or queries? Councillor Broadfoot, are you happy to move?
Yeah,
the
happy
motion?
to move.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Hollenby? Are we all in favour? Thank you.
The chair, are we adding a resolution in to authorise you to appoint the contact person?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not on the, it's not on the agenda,
Authorise.
but it came up in the training.
Contact us.
Yeah, so if we just, okay, yeah, so we clarified it with Tracy.
Yeah.
So through the mayor, so there is a requirement for council to appoint a contact person under the as the contact officer for behavioural standards. This would usually come through in the delegations register, but because the delegations registers haven't been updated yet to take effect. Then I guess the recommendation is that we add in a second recommendation to council there, that council delegate, the council nominate the CEO or delegate as the contact officer for the purposes of the behavioural standards regulations.
Got the resolution here. Go ahead.
Share it.
That council nominate or authorise the CEO to nominate the person as the contact.
Hang on, let us,
So basically-
sorry. Then can we just give Amanda a moment to catch up there? Nominate or authorise the CEO to
as the contact officer for matters referred to the behavioural standards panel.
Let me just check that that's correct. The council
It's
nominate.
nominate, not nominator.
No, that's nominate or.
Oh, yeah.
Nominate.
Or nominate the CEO. We're gonna either nominate the CEO as the contact officer. Or
Also,
you're
yeah,
gonna authorize the CEO to nominate.
I think we said nominate the CEO or delegate, which is
Yeah.
So not to be picky, but it's pretty much.
Yeah, let's. Yeah, you're good.
Because that the referral bit is at the bottom is what's in the.
Right.
Because they're acknowledged.
And that was something that did come up in discussion at training, yes.
Can that just clarify that or delegate as
Delegate.
from the chief executive officer? Because technically, we need to delegate someone now, don't we?
Yeah, it says.
No, what
Brad said.
Yeah.
Authorise the
That's not
chief
how that
executive
reads.
officer
Authorize
to
the
nominate.
CEO to nominate. The CEO can nominate himself.
Yeah, but the way that it reads.
So the council
Authorize the CEO to nominate a person. I think nominate himself or he can nominate.
or
Somebody
delegate.
else.
to nominate.
That's it.
So are we having more delegate in there or not?
Now, I reckon just he could nominate a person, he can nominate himself, or he can nominate someone else. But you're just ordering him to make the nomination.
Yeah.
So it's pedantic, but
Yeah,
it's
it's-
read one.
Yeah.
No, person.
Well, it says person in the Gazette notice, so I think there's some intention there that maybe some bigger councils. They might nominate an independent person.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you.
No, thanks.
Lynn, can I please have a mover for this motion?
Sure, and I'm happy with that.
And I'm happy to second that as well.
Well, we've moved the first part.
Yeah, but yeah, if we do it as a block.
Yeah.
Put the vote again.
Are we happy?
It's just a variation, which has already been voted.
Should do it another day, but
Yeah, I think so too.
I think if we
We'd
move
already
already
carried
carried
the
the
first. Yeah, yeah, that's right. So can I have a mover for dot point 2? Thank you, councillor Staunton, and a seconded. Thank you, councillor Broadfoot.
There you go.
And are we all in favour? Thank you.
That's true.
Thank you for that pickup. Okay, so 12.7, the Audit and Risk Committee, terms of reference and appointment of council representatives. This is quite a bit of decision making here on what's going to happen with the transitional provisions. So I think would we hand this, Mr. CEO, to
Thanks, Sarah, as well. Just hopefully the report does clarify, but I'll try and explain that a little bit more clearly. So the effect from November 2023, the Local Government Review Act kicks in, and that act states that the majority of the members of the audit committee must be independent members, and that they must be suitably qualified with the relevant skills, knowledge, and experience. However, there is a transitional regulation that's in place that if you elect an audit committee at this point in time, i.e. prior to the legislation kicking in, that composition can remain for the term of that committee or those members. So council has a decision right now whether you want to enact the membership of the committee as if the legislation is in place, and therefore from the outset have it that the independent members form the majority, or you can make the call, and we've left the terms of reference as it was previously, which is where we had 3 councillors and 2 independents. So that's the decision that council needs to make at this point in time. But you do have that flexibility right now to make that choice.
Through the chair. So question, so implications of additional independent members, they would receive sitting fees?
Correct.
Yeah. So there may be a cost incurred there, but just second through the chair to the only remaining member of the audit committee now is, just wondering your thoughts, like what you reckon.
Through the chair, I really would like to see that we going with the new legislation, particularly because it is an audit and risk committee that we're seeing to go with what is going to change to rather than stick to the old. The problem with that is just finding the people out there in the community to come and be qualified non. But I do believe that would show us a whole lot of positive compliance, I suppose, because it is if something goes wrong, they're going to look back at the audit and risk and say, well, you went with this, but you could have gone with this other group. I would be really keen to see the new additional members here.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, and just adding some comments, and again, I think the role of the Audit Risk Management Committee is really to give council some assurances around the processes, the risk profile, and internal control procedures. And I think part of the changes in the legislation is ensuring the qualifications around the people sitting on the Audit Risk Management Committee. And I think the number of whether it's 2 or 3, I think the consideration of cost, whether it's a sitting fee, is inconsequential in the long term of the cost of not having the right people sitting on the audit committee. And I think that's also why, as opposed to us setting the sitting fee, the recommendation 0.4 is that we seek proposals, including fee proposals, because I think there's a range of qualified people who are qualified auditors. They sit on audit associations. They're well versed in the sector as a whole. Not all the independent members need to be from within the local community. I think there's also some benefit of having people coming from outside of that who have a knowledge of the sector as a whole, and they see systemic issues across the sector, and they can identify those things here within Port Lincoln as well. So I think if we were to set a sitting fee, we may be missing out on the potential to bring additional skill sets into that oversight committee. So I think it's very much a process of, if you want to go with 2 or 3, there will be a cost to that. But that's the cost of, I guess, ensuring that you've got long-term oversight and independence, looking at the council through the audit risk management committee lens. So I think, if it's 2 or 3, it doesn't really matter. The cost, I think, is something that's parcel of the process. I think, ideally we'd be looking for a mix of local, but also experienced local government sector auditors to be sitting on that panel to give you some assurance that we've got the due diligence.
And through you, Mayor, if that is the resolution, then we will also just need to amend the terms of reference accordingly. It's part of the same process this evening.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Ritchie, Deputy Mayor.
There's a question there about what would be seen then as the right balance there. 3 independents and 2 councillors, or 3 independents and 1 councillor. Is there a view there in terms of what would be ideal, having functionality but connection with the chamber as well?
Through the mayor, I think the recommendations are minimum of 2 elected members and 3 independents. So I think you would stick with that as a starting point.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so we have current composition would be for the what have we got here? Do we need to amend that, Mr. CEO?
I would suggest that dot point 3 will become council determines the composition of the committee with respect to the total numbers of the committee. And we can put in brackets being 5, the number of elected members on the committee, in brackets being 2, if that was the will of the chamber, and the number of independent members on the committee in brackets being 3, which will include the independent chair of the committee.
And sorry, that note 2, recommendation 2, council adopts the terms of reference for the committee as amended to reflect the revised composition. Or do we just put the fair enough, man?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
And do we need to, at dot point 5, do we need to add any elected members to that?
Yes.
Yes.
Now you'll appoint the elected.
Have they been appointed as a separate item? I don't think so.
I beg your pardon, it does come later in the agenda.
Oh, it does come later, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Just to confirm that you're going to appoint the elected members.
It's checking.
Of the other committee.
No, I think it's, so we'll need to do that now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So on that basis, I'm happy to move that motion and nominate councillor Peter Lynn and councillor Karen Hollenby to the Audit and Risk Committee.
Councillor Peter Lynn and councillor Hollenby prepared to stand.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for moving that motion, councillor Broadfoot. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rousseau. And would anyone like to speak
Do we
for or
need to
against?
leave the meeting?
Beg your pardon?
Do we need to leave the meeting?
As appointment to committees, there's no financial benefit for you.
It's okay. Asking a question.
Beg your pardon, is
Maybe what, sorry?
Other nomination. Well, we'd have to amend the motion. If we were going to do that. I was going to pass muster. Would anyone like to speak for or against the motion? No speakers?
I'll just speak.
Thank
I'll
you.
just speak for the motion as I put it. I guess like councillor Lynn has got the experience within the Audit and Risk Committee, so having that continuity I think is really important. And also we had a conversation as a bit of a team around committees, which was suggested at the training. And I think councillor Karen Hollenby has has great experience with budgets and projects and programs of government and that sort of thing. So yeah, I just think bringing her eyes into that would be good. But it may be, at future time there's other people who'll be interested. But I think at this time it'd be good, and also with a bit of a gender balance in there as well is good.
Councillor Minchin.
I'd also like to speak in support of the motion as it stands as well, and those two nominees. And also add there that there is, and I think there's other people who would be ideal in there. If we had 3, then we'd have there's some great people in the room that would be there. So yeah, supporting the motion.
Thank you. I do have a question. Through the CEO, David. Is the mayor able to attend these meetings, or is the yes?
If there's a recommendation for the mayor to attend the meetings, I think it's ex officio is the terminology. which as an observer.
So would that need to be in this recommendation?
Yes, it would need to be a recommendation.
Yeah, without, I could, yeah,
So
see if there's an appetite.
maybe I'd suggest that when we get to the appointments to the other committees, that we add in the notion in there that the mayor is ex officio on all council committees.
Yes, that's very good.
Thank you. Okay, so are there any other speakers to the motion? Carol.
I'm happy to speak in favour of the motion as well. Yeah, they have Peter and that continuity is good for committees, I think. Yeah, I'm sure Karen will be awesome.
Thank you. I'll call for a vote then and see if we're all in favour. Thank you. Carried.
Yeah, I vote against myself.
Thank you. And congratulations on your appointment to that committee, which doesn't alleviate council from, you know, all its due diligence anyway, but thank you for committing to represent us on that committee. And for also being proactive in looking beyond the current status and going to the, you know, to the new arrangements. Thank you. We're moving to 12.8, which is the Section 41 committees and appointment of council representatives. So we have those motion on the screen, which is about the terms of reference, the draft terms of reference for the CEO Review Committee, which was included as an attachment and appoints the membership for the current term of council. So we're looking for nominations for the 4 members of council to be on that committee. So perhaps we could open for discussion or questions. I'm not sure in the past who may have served on that committee, and that's not to say that there wouldn't be a change. Could we please ask for nominations if there's interested parties in serving on that committee? Councillor Broadfoot.
Yeah, I'm interested. I've been on the CEO Review Committee, I think, since for both terms, and bring a HR background. So yeah, I'm interested in continuity there and staying on that committee.
Thank you, Councillor
I
Rouse.
would like to put my hand up. I was on the last one as well for the last 3 years, and I really enjoyed it. Found it helpful and had a little bit of experience in other areas with that as well. So I just once again for continuity. If members are happy with that.
Thank you. We're looking for 2 more.
And I'd also like to nominate again, I think that's the last term, and I found that a very useful process to be involved in. And yeah, so very happy to say it again.
Are there any other nominations or self-nominations here?
I'm happy to self-nominate. I think it would be good to have a fresh pair of eyes in there as well.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Any other nominations, or are we happy to settle with the 4 names provided? Good words in anyone's mouth, but
I'm happy to second all of those nominations and speak in favour. I can move, yes, move. Second.
thank you. So if we got that, Amanda?
Sorry, Councillor Storm.
I think certainly the ones on the previous CEO Review Committee did a good job of selection, I must say. And it'd be great to have Dylan on there as well. Yeah.
All right. Can I ask for a show of hands then, all in favour? Thank you. Carried. Okay, 12.9, we're looking for the appointment of council representatives on other council advisory groups. So the paper has been prepared there, and
there's also some additional information about each of the committees that we have copies of constitutions for, etc. Should I defer to you here, Mr. Seaver?
So I'm just wondering whether or not we would like to do these one by one. Just to avoid a situation where we may end up with
People having to
a
declare a
complicated
conflict or something.
vote and discussion. So I think if we maybe call for nominations for each committee and then move, well, I guess depending on nominations, then we actually move the appointment for that particular committee and then move on.
Thank you. I think it's also pertinent to remind ourselves about the training that we received and about these appointments being a little bit different to committees that are formed by council, that these ones may incur a conflict of interest or you just need to assess your own arrangements as a representative on each of these committees. So I'd call for nominations for the Lower Air Health Advisory Committee.
Through you, Mayor Misler. So it's actually the Air and Far North Health Advisory Council now. Air and Far North Local Health Network Advisory Council is what it's called. Health Advisory. Local Health Network Health Advisory Council. So this committee, just for background for everyone, is a governance structure which is the consumer voice for people accessing health services through the Air and Far North Local Health Network. And so this group is calls for a council representative, a state government representative. It's chaired by Harry Miller, and I've been on there for 4 years and not much happens. And so if somebody else, I'll probably stay on there as a community member anyway. Dr. John Williams is on it. Pascal, the pharmacist, is on it. But she's working for the uni now. Who else have we got? Anne Lord, Chris Jetner, and Andrew Henschke comes down from Locke. So it's really about the voice of consumers in the health system. That's what it's about. Yeah, so I just wanted you to have a little bit of background because there might be, I've committed to continuing because we may have some momentum. And I could go on as a community rep if somebody else is interested to come in as a council rep and bring some fresh blood and energy in there. Anybody who'd be interested, definitely be the council rep if you would like to.
When do they have meetings?
It's a Thursday evening, and I reckon it's something like the third Thursday at 5:30, and we can Zoom or go in. Would you be interested?
I would be interested.
Okay, great. I'll nominate Lillian Winter to be and I'll stay on there, but then you can be the council person and we'll broaden our base a bit. That would be good.
Are there any other nominations for that role? Would I have then a remover? Would that be Councillor Broadfoot? And are you happy to second Councillor Staunton?
Yes.
Thank you. And Lillian said she's prepared to stand. So could we then have a show of hands? All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Andrew, I've got the name.
Air and Far North Local Health Network Health Advisory Council. That's it. Local Health Network, Air and Far North Local Health Network.
Yeah.
Yes, because
There's
it's
no-
the Health Advisory Council of the Local Health Network.
Fair enough.
Right, yeah.
If not, we'll all be apologising next week.
We're good with that one. Thank you. So the Lower Air Health Cluster Management Group. Who? Thank you.
I'd like
Deputy.
to nominate Councillor Rouse to that committee.
Councillor Arcelli.
Yeah, I'd love to stay on it. I was on it last year, and that's probably a lower level to the advisory council. We have a lot of health people from within Port Lincoln and trying to expand. We did have the chemist from Ellison used to be on it as well. But it's mainly just looking at and we're under PHN, the Primary Health Network. So we're sort of involved with them as well. And it's just keeping an eye on trying to encourage things, activities around that, a few mental health sessions and things like that. So yeah, trying to be proactive in the community of Lower Epping.
Thank you. I will just ask if there are any other nominations for that role. And there being none, and Councillor Rousseau is prepared to stand, could we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Broadfoot. And a show of hands, are we all in favour? Thank you, carried. The Port Lincoln Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. Have we got a nomination for the Councillor Broadfoot would like to nominate Councillor Staunton? Okay. And Councillor Staunton's prepared to stand?
I'm happy to stay, but if someone else wants to have a go, I don't mind.
Are there any other nominations from council? Thank you, Councillor Staunton. And can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Hollenby. Are we all in favour? Thank you, carried. An interesting one, the Ravendale Community Sports Centre Board, is that what it's still called? Thank you. Have we got a nomination? Councillor
I'd like to nominate both Andrea Broadfoot and Tia Lynn. They've been the two councillors that have been on it, and I just thought the continuity of what's happening there and the changes that are trying to be implemented, I think it would be great to have at least one, if not both, on there. If there's someone else that is passionate about it, that's fine. But I think it's one of those ones that we really do need to keep the continuity.
Thank you, Councillor Rosell. Councillor Lynn, are you happy to stand again? And Councillor Broadfoot, also thank you. Just before it is voted on, I do want to make sure that our new councillors also, you know, if you feel like that this is something you'd like to do on any of these committees, please put your hand up too. We don't want to leave anyone behind or, yeah.
And through you, members, look, there's also the opportunity to attend these committee meetings. They're open to people. You can come along and see what's going on. So yeah, quite happy that they're not closed. None of these committees are closed. So if people wanted to come along and get across the agenda and things and the issues and opportunities, feel free.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder then for Councillor Broadfoot and Councillor Lynn to be the representatives? Thank you, Councillor Pointer. So I have moving the seconder, and are we all in favour? Thank you, carried. This next one, the Marina Maintenance Advisory Committee. Just prior to calling for nominations, I did just want to ask a question, and I don't know if any of the councillors also may have questions on this committee, but I'm wondering why, as this is part of the tripartite requirement, that this is not actually a council-appointed committee. Mr. CEO, can you give us some clarity on what's happening at that Marina Maintenance Advisory Committee, or if there is a representative that's been on that committee before, perhaps if they could tell us what's happened there. I only asked that question because I did look for it on the council website and couldn't find any minutes from, I think the last ones were 2018 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think simple answer here could be that this is a committee that's existed under a separate instrument outside of the Local Government Act. So it's the tripartite agreement, which has created the obligation on council to administer the committee. And it may very well be that it's not being considered through the lens of Section 41 of the Act for that purpose. So the committee hasn't been constituted under Section 41, it's been constituted via the third party agreement, which is the TPA. So that would be the explanation I can offer here, but I can certainly follow it up and find out why it wouldn't be viewed through that lens. That may be something that needs to be changed, but in its essence, the core reason for that committee sits outside the Local Government Act.
Okay, thank you. on that basis, then, you would be happy for two councillors to still be appointed to
Yes.
this committee? Thank
Yes.
you. Okay, so is anyone happy to nominate?
Well, through you, Brent, sorry. I was proxy for councillor Davis, who was a representative, so I understand as a proxy, like I didn't have a vote or anything, I was just sort of there if I could attend. So I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. As a proxy, we actually have a vote.
You do, the representative isn't there.
Oh, if the rep's there, like I didn't have a vote when I was there.
Did you both attend the meetings?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So only one was voting, that's the
Yeah, so
council representative.
councillor Davis was the chair and I was a proxy. And if I was present as proxy, I didn't vote.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
and councillor Staunton, are you prepared to stand again as either the councillor representative or the proxy?
No one else wants it. Karen?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to stand. I'm probably going to have a conflict of interest with this particular thing moving forward in the council chambers. So if I'm on the committee, then I'm not taking any votes away from here in the first place. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Provisions.
Question on that, right? Question for you. Would you, as a state government employee, have a conflict on the tripartite on that committee?
I don't know if that would have to.
Interesting question.
Two things here. So again, we'll look into the constitution of the committee, which I believe falls outside of section 41. The second component here is that the purpose of the committee is to provide advice back to council and to the Department of Transport when we're setting the annual budget for maintenance within the marina. That advice goes back to through the executive and the admin, and then bubbles up into the council's annual business plan and budget each year. So the committee itself doesn't make recommendations back to council as in this council. It comes back through more operationally than that. So I guess influence at the committee level won't necessarily have a direct connection back to this chamber. The second thing, which is just dawned on me as we're having this conversation, is the representative is also, through the terms of reference for the advisory committee, is the chair of the committee. And as chair of the committee, unless it's the mayor or deputy mayor, you also receive a further sitting fee stipend through our council policy for sitting on that committee. So whoever gets nominated, I think will need to declare an interest and leave before it's moved to second. Because this is the only one of those committees where you'll receive an additional fee.
So the question though was, because Karen is a state government employee, would there be a conflict of interest?
Karen doesn't work for the Department of Transport as far as I'm aware.
Oh, okay, so that doesn't matter. Okay.
I'm happy to be councillor's proxy if she would want.
I was just going to move that councillor Staunton be our representative and councillor Hollenby be her proxy.
I think that councillor Staunton has actually wished to be the proxy. Is that correct?
Flex.
I'm happy to be your proxy.
Are you happy to be the council representative, councillor Staunton? It's not convincing. Yes.
Just a question, is there a reason why it has been, and it's designed to have the deputy mayor be there, because then it doesn't require a fee, or is there an openness to that cost element?
To be fair, I don't think it's been thought through to this extent. This is a matter that council deals with every 4 years, so it probably doesn't get dealt with that often. I think in the context of that, if that was given that it is a meeting that's chaired by the representative, there could be discussion around whether the deputy mayor takes that role. But with our council and committees policy, or is it the allowances benefits policy, for any committee, any member of council that takes on the chairing role of a council committee outside of the mayor and deputy mayor, they will have a sitting allowance for that.
We have.
Right, so at the moment, we have councillor Staunton as the council representative and chair and councillor Hollenby as the proxy. I will just ask again, councillor Staunton, you know, it is okay to say no.
I'm happy to accept the nomination. I just had, like, I'm not hesitant. It's not a it's a challenging position. Yeah, I've been working councillor Davis, so learned some skills, and the CEO will be there to support me.
You know, test meetings also.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I shall leave the room for the vote.
Yes.
And councillor
Hollenby.
Yes.
So do I have a mover and seconder?
Move us, that's fine.
So can I have a seconder for this motion?
Yeah.
Councillor Broadfoot, sorry. Did you get that amendment? Sorry, who was it?
Robert and
Broadfoot.
councillor Broadfoot.
Do anyone like to speak to the motion, or are we just happy to vote? Let's vote. All in favour? Thank you, Harry. Thanks, Bonnie.
Matt, I think, do we need the security guy still, because he keeps looking in the door?
No, is Trent still here?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's looking up next to the lock up at the end.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is he?
Let's just
Okay,
say-
so he's happy to stay.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I went out there before, I was like, can I go? And I was like, no, I'm just coming out for a concert. So, I'm not telling you anything.
Okay, moving on.
Just to clarify, we did make mention of whether or not we add a recommendation about appointing the mayor as ex officio, so.
Can you do that?
So wording, and by right, we probably should have pulled that one up last item, but it's fine.
By the way,
Oh,
I think we just seen the lights on it as well.
Was they have gone,
Open the other side.
they were considered there as well, just to explain, they have gone way along the playground,
Oh, you can't see.
but the trees down there on the other end's all done, and there's another tree down there. So
So then we can have some wording,
Yeah,
Josh, yeah.
yeah, just below the last one,
yeah. Yeah, I think it's.
You recommend.
yeah, new recommendation. The council in accordance with.
Just adding a recommendation about appointing the mayor as ex officio on section 41 committees.
Yeah. The council in accordance with section 41, subsection 6 of the Local Government Act 1999. Appoint the mayor, as an ex space officio member, council committees.
Thank you. Could I please call for a mover? Thank you, councillor Carley. And a seconder. Thank you, councillor Pointer. I hope that we don't need any discussion. I hope that this is a okay motion and everyone's happy, but and I'll put that to you and see if we can have a vote. All in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. Right, moving on to 12:10. The Local Government Association Council Delegate Representative. That recommendation there is that council appoint the mayor as the representative on the LGA, with the deputy mayor being appointed as council's proxy representative. I think this is fairly self-explanatory also. Could I ask for a mover? Thank you, councillor Hollenby, and the seconder. Thank you, councillor Cowley. And are we all in favour? Thank you, carried. The next one, again, Local Government Finance Authority of South Australia, the council delegate representative. And again, the recommendation is that council appoint the mayor as the representative on the Local Government Finance Authority, with the deputy mayor being appointed as council's proxy representative. Are you moving that, councillor Arcel? Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lim. And are we all in favour? Thank you, carried. The Eyre Peninsula Local Government Association Council Delegate Representative. Again, it's the council appoint the mayor as the council's board member of the EPLGA, and the deputy mayor be appointed as the council's deputy member on the EPLGA. Again, could I call for a mover? Councillor Pointer, thank you. And a seconder, councillor Cowley. Are we all in favour? Carried, thank you. The acting CE 12.13. So I think this is also fairly self-explanatory, that the recommendation is that council endorse the appointment of the General Manager Corporate and Community and/or General Manager Environment and Infrastructure to act in the absence of the Chief Executive Officer when designated by the Chief Executive Officer in accordance with Section 102B of the Local Government Act 1999. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I think councillor Ritchie is moving the motion. Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I do have a question.
Thank you.
Through the chair, is that what we say?
Yes.
Through the chair. The and or, is that so that the CEO can elect whichever is most available at that time, or is that just to keep options open, or?
Correct. So the legislation requires myself, as CEO, to appoint someone when I'm on leave.
Yeah. So
it's not actually council appointing the people, but the legislation requires me to consult with council before I appoint someone to act in my absence. So instead of this report coming to council, as it has done previously, every time I've got on leave, it's about having a standing, basically, approval or endorsement in place that when I'm going to go on leave, or if I'm on leave unexpectedly, then I can just internally let either David or JP, depending on a range of factors, what's going on, workloads, everything else, to act in the offices. So, it's effectively meeting the consultation requirements with council.
Just a further question, sorry, Mr. CEO. The appointments with the position, not the incumbent, so that if, say, for example, either of those managers were themselves on leave and being backfilled, that delegation might be passed to whoever's
acting in their role.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
David and JP never let her have leave at the same time.
Just a further question, just for everyone's. So, and you bounce that position, like you swap that appointment, do you, or?
We will, depending on a range of factors like what's happening internally at the time. So previously it's been David who's been acting, and JP hasn't had a chance to act as CEO. But the intention will be this year, as we start to work out leave priorities and things like that, JP will have that opportunity as well.
Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Okay, so how about that? Deputy Mayor Ritchie, could I ask for a seconder, please? Councillor Staunton. And are we all in favour? Show of hands. Thank you. Carried. Okay, so we're at 13.1, the budget review for September 22. The recommendation is that council receive the budget review, forecast number 1, and adopt the document as a revised budget for the 22-23 financial year. Just prior to that, I would like to ask if there are any questions from councillors. Thank you, councillor Holly.
I was just wondering, in the new and upgraded capital projects towards the end of that budget, there's a bunch that have not been allocated for a budget. For this year?
The operational initiatives. Or
Annual business plan projects.
Yeah, so you're saying that the annual budgets didn't have a.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot, like, they're all carried over projects that weren't completed last financial year, so they get rolled into the budget at forecast funding.
So
This
the,
is, yeah.
so the terminology for original budget where it says zero means the original budget as of 1st of July.
As it was adopted.
But there would have been a previously budgeted amount from last year's budget, which is what's being carried forward. Yeah.
Any other questions, councillor Hollenby, or any other councillors? I did just want to make the note that there was some timing issues, as it's been detailed in the report. A good report, thank you. Both and the carryovers. The additional funding for transport relief. I wasn't sure what that meant, what transport relief is. Anyone? Thank you, Bonnie.
It's the an allocation of funds that we get from, I can't remember their name, but it's the transport relief for the recycled waste that goes from the Resource Recovery Centre each year. So we have an estimate of how much we get from that, and then when it's finalised at the end of the year, it usually comes in 2 sections, but this year they were late in getting in finalising and approving the payment back to us. So usually we get about 40 grand in May and then about 40 grand in August, but this year it all came through at the same time. But it's, yeah, it's for the recycling waste.
Thank you.
So it comes back to us through the solid waste levy. That's where it's
Not through the solid waste levy, I don't think. It's through yours, is it called green?
yeah, it's
Green industry.
separate initiative that came about a few years ago.
Thank you for that. I also noticed the reimbursements for the marina maintenance had gone up 180,000.
So part of that is along with further to what you mentioned about the rollover of works that were happening at the marina. So there's continued works to the safety upgrade for the footbridge and the electronic works for the footbridge that we didn't complete last year. So those funds are rolled over along with the additional income. So that income that we had budgeted for last year was obviously didn't get taken up, so it's just rolled over as well.
Thank you. And yes, the reallocation of capital to revenue obviously had an impact as well.
Positive.
Yeah.
But I'd like to put a star next to it to say, you know, don't get too excited about it because it's already spent, and don't get used to it because it's not going to happen.
Star noted, okay.
It might be worth noting just on those 2 things. So the first thing is, and you recall from the briefing session the other day, and we'll talk about this, the financial training, is the adjusted ratios, and they use the word adjusted, and you can see the impact timing of the prepayment of federal government monies can have on what is effectively now a $1.4 million turnaround in the space of 3 months just because of the timing. And I think the other one to note in there is the treatment of the LCR CI funding as operating funding. And I think that was our position in the first instance. After discussion with the auditors, they wanted it to be treated as capital, and they've now reversed their decision, which is why it's now come back in as operating. So there's just 2 things to note on those sums.
Thank you. And also I just had a question on the bushfire prevention program. Were those variances to do with staff costs?
No, they're contract costs that when we did the budget last year, essentially we were underestimating when we set the budget what we needed the contract amount to be for. Yeah, adjusted it up with performance.
Thank you. Yes, so there is a large amount of carryover capital projects from last year, and I wish the staff very best in managing those in this year with all the other commitments as well. So thank you. Are there any other questions from councillors at all? No?
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor Ritchie. I'll get there. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Staunton. And are we all in favour? Show of hands. Thank you, carried. Thank you for your good work on that. I know it's not simple stuff. Sorry, up to, that's the main one. 13.2, the annual business plan project status report for the quarter ended 30th September 2022. There's a recommendation that council note the annual business plan project status report and the attachment for the quarter ended September 22. Are there any questions from councillors for staff on the status report? No, I did have one. I just noticed the road reseals that 500,000 from the 800,000 was to be, I guess, redirected to complement the DIT project for Liverpool Street. So, and there was also a Washington Street Road landscaping project. I think they said in progress. Can't remember now. Yeah. I just wondered the impact on our road reseals. Obviously, 500,000 is a huge amount of money, and what kind of change in priorities that meant for other roads that we were planning to reseal, I guess, and how we communicate that to community.
Through the chair, yes. So the process of the road reseals is largely based on condition assessments for the assets. So the timing with our roads, whether it's 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, is not going to make a huge impact on the longer term renewal of that asset. And the last year we did 2 years worth of road reseals, and we've previously done one year contracts for the resealing projects. JP, who's not here to talk to this tonight, he's in the process of finalising a 3-year works program and then going out for a 3-year tender. So with the timing of works and the balance of that, it just means that effectively the 3-year road reseal program we could push that by 6 months and spread across 3.5 years. But effectively, it just means that there's a balance of work that we've pushed out by 6 to 12 months with the road reseals. I would suggest that if there's any roads that are a higher priority or need the immediate treatment of the reseal, that they would still come into the balance of roads that get prioritised this year. The other caveat on that would be, while we've estimated and we've put a ballpark figure of $500,000 in there for the contribution of council for the car park works along the perimeter of the Department of Transport roads, it's likely that that figure will actually be less than that. But we'll find that out early in the new year once the department's completed their tender processes for that bill.
Thank you. Just on roadworks, there is a concern, I guess, from community about the quality of some of the roadworks undertaken, particularly on Western Approach Road now. That's all deteriorated. So I guess that's a conversation we can have with state MP and maybe even federal one. But I do hope that when we are allocating these funds, that we're doing the absolute best quality we can, just to avoid having to reseal or patch up or do anything like that down the track.
Yeah, just on that point, it's probably just for the information in the chamber. There's probably a couple of things that we need to look at in future with the works program, and I think first and foremost with the road reseal, and I think this will be something that comes out through the asset maturity work that JP's team will be working on this year as well. Which is around previously we've done like reseal the roads. What we need to get back into the habit of doing is looking at the underlying structure of the roads, because what we've found is over the recent years where there's been reseal works completed, there may or may not have been other treatments applied, like correcting curve and channel for tree defects and things like that before the reseal is applied. So that's a continuous improvement process that JP has already identified that we'll be working through with the team, which I think will then lead to better outcomes with the reseals. There is also another issue that's pending once we work through the road condition assessments, is that we don't and we haven't budgeted for road reconstruction as part of our ongoing reseal program. We're purely looking at the resealing of roads based on calculations in the asset management plan. And there is a fundamental difference between a reseal of a road, which is effectively topping off the surface, and reconstructing a road. And, you know, if we've got particular roads where we've got defects in the underlying base structure, then we'll need to look at reconstructing a road. And I guess to give you an idea of the magnitude of cost, we have an annual reseal budget of around $750,000. The reconstruction of Run Road could cost more than $750,000. So I guess that's something that we've actually got to address and look at in the next 2 to 3 years in our long-term financials, but also in the asset management plans. And I think that will have a bit of an impact. To put that into simple terms that you could easily visualise, if you're driving down Liverpool Street at the moment, if you're heading westward down Liverpool Street, out the front of a Better Electrical, you notice that one lane drops away and it's almost got a channel in that lane. That is an underlying defect in the road, and the road actually requires reconstruction there, which is some of the works that the Department of Transport will undertake. We don't have any roads that are quite that bad, but I guess what we've got to have a look at is roads where we start to have that sort of underlying base structure deteriorating. It's going to require more than a road reseal. So I think that's just something to keep in mind when we're looking at budget and the works programs moving forwards. As we start to uncover and develop more robust plans around treatments, it may require additional funding or decisions made about prioritisation of resealing. That's just something else to note.
Thank you for the insight.
Through the chair, I have a question, and this may not be the appropriate forum to ask, but just out of due diligence, have we ensured that the footpaths and roads that a member of the public's been contacting us about are considered as part of their future asset management planning process?
All of the assets, so all of the footpaths and roads that are in our asset register are part of that planning process. The process of condition assessments, which is what will lead to the 3-year works program, will identify those that need the highest priority. Within that, there will be a difference between, and we'll need to look at hierarchy of roads, because it's not just a case that some roads, if they're deteriorated, they get treatment. There may be roads which are less deteriorated but have a much higher volume of traffic that get the attention and the funding allocation before that, which means that there might be some residential streets that don't get the love that the people who live there would like them to receive in the time that they receive them. But the indication around the curb and channel, there would be a handful of streets that I could identify, and that's what JP's team will need to work through, is around where the curb and channel has been affected by tree displacement. And I think the street you're referring to is one example of that. But it is something there isn't a plan in place for the moment, but it is something that JP is aware when we've got the resources. The manager of civil or supervisor, we need to start putting in place a plan for those remedial works. Yeah.
Thank you for that insight.
Yep, sorry, I had.
No, it's
I think it's
part of a continual improvement process. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor.
Just to say that happy to make the motion and speak to it as well. Just to say that, you know, amazing the work that has happened with the CEO and JP and the team around this as well, looking at the assessment, how those roads work, and getting a very strong picture of what's required in the long term. I think that's brilliant, and total confidence in that approach.
Thank you.
Happy to make it.
And do we have a second?
Happy to second that, and as you can see, we've made a lot of progress, a lot of projects. For those becoming councillors, we had a session where we had to prioritise a lot of projects. Like, we've got a great big long wish list, so we had to prioritise a lot to what we needed to get done sooner rather than later. So we've made a huge amount of progress. So right on to the start.
I feel that will be the collective opinion. So thank you to all the staff. Are we all in favour? Show of hands, please. Thank you. Carried. Now, 13.3, councillor Rowson, thank you. So just for the minutes, we do need to report that councillor Rowson is declaring a general conflict of interest and is leaving the room. Is that correct? Mr. C.
Correct, yep.
To do anything else there?
No, no.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, the recommendation, and we hope it will be on the screen shortly, and it's regarding the Flinders Theatre Lincoln Cinema new lease. So basically it's asking that that the leaseholders enter into a new lease for 1 year with no right of renewal, that the rental fee be set at $32,079.60 plus GST, and that the CEO be authorised to execute the lease agreement and any other necessary documentation. Councillor Broadfoot, moving? Yeah. Would you like to speak to the motion? No. Is there a seconder? Please, councillor Staunton. No, don't want to speak either? No. Thank you. Are we all in agreement? Thank you. Carried. Okay.
Then can you just grab it on ready, please?
She got up all right. Yes.
Right. So the next item is 13.4. This one is about the Port Lincoln Gymnastics Club. I just wonder, councillor Pointer, if I do have a second. Thank you. Just checking. Thank you so much. My apologies. So the recommendation there also is in connection with a new lease. This one is to grant a 5-year lease. Sorry, before we go on to that one, councillor Rowsell, did you want to know what the outcome was for the other matter? It was okay. The lease, the recommendations. Thank you. So this is a lease for a 5-year term, expiring 31st of December 2027, and part 2 is passed that the CEO be authorised to execute the lease agreement. Are there any questions or?
Chair, I have a question for the CEO on this one. And it's to do with the length of time for the lease. With the Ravendale lease, and looking at some possible changes to the way that we do business in that whole precinct, is that too long a time to allow for a lease?
If I could speak, so Chair, there are some clauses within the lease that do allow us to sever, which are in relation to if we do have intent to develop. So with that property, we are actually under a ground lease only, and the improvements on the site were developed by the Gymnastics Club Incorporated. So there is an inbuilt function in there, almost specifically, what I believe you're querying, Councillor.
I'm very happy to move the motion.
And just a note on that, these, where we've got situations where there's a ground lease and then there's structures that have been built by a third party on them, it is almost quite academic in terms of process of renewing the lease, because it would be very interesting if we decided not to renew the lease.
Yeah, it wasn't
So you're happy to move the motion? Thank you, councillor Ning. Is there a second, please? Thank you, councillor Pointer. And a show of hands if we're all in favour. Thank you, carried. Now, 13.5, I had a couple of conflicts of interests that I've noted here. So for the minutes, we have councillor Staunton.
Yes, I declared a general conflict of interest as a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and my name is on the request. For someone to leave the room.
Thank you. And councillor Richard.
And I declare the general conflict of interest on this, but we'll stay in the room and not vote.
Thank you. So, councillors, this recommendation is, I believe, quite self-explanatory. We're asking for some road closures for the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Christmas pageant and the Ministers Association's carols on the foreshore, 10th of December. And also that the event has an exemption in relation to roads and road-related areas and times. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Rasan?
I'd like to move it actually.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Do you want to speak to the motion?
Oh, I just think it's great that the Chamber of Commerce, with the support of council, have started this program up again, and the fact that they've even expanded more, bringing in the carols on the foreshore. They've got people, got the churches doing different stalls, etc. It's just showing that they really are thinking out the square, outside the square for the community, and I think it's just wonderful that they're doing it, and congratulate all involved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Cowley, would you like to speak to the motion at all?
No, I'll be saying something.
Happy. Thank you.
Well,
Councillor.
it's just a point for the minutes that we've got councillor instead of deputy mayor. Save the
Thank
man
you.
tidying it up later.
Sorry, that might be my fault.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
Apparently arrangements have been organised. I checked at 4:45 and it was don't change the amendment. Sorry, members, there was just some discussion earlier whether there was going to be a conflict with the yacht club use that sort of set on the foreshore. My understanding with the relevant manager is that was resolved. So it's remaining as is.
Thank you.
I have a question, and thank you. If I may,
Yes.
just 2 to 4, is that actually going to be long enough? Or
The last stop point is actually for the Tasman Terrace Bly Street to Eyre Street between 4 and midnight. So the other sections 2 to 4, I believe, are because the pageant itself is going through the roads, culminating, I guess, at the end.
but it's not the beforehand of everybody rocking up to the pageants that,
They'll stay off the road.
yeah, well, I don't know, I'm just.
I've done the form.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
as the event organisers, that's what they've requested, so that's what
Yeah.
we consider.
Just as a real point, I guess, is that the forms did say the joy and hope signs. It mentioned them, didn't actually say too much about them, but I just wondered with the foreshore redevelopment whether they might still be put in place where they were previously, or I don't know if anyone has that information, or
So the request for the joy, hope and love signs has been received and granted. It won't conflict with any of the works on the foreshore at this point in time. So I think we're talking from January through until Christmas through until 14th of February, the week after Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
So there won't be any work in that area on the foreshore at the time.
Thank you. Right, so they have a move for a seconder. Just check. Thank you. Are we all in favour? Thank you. Carried.
You're right. Jack. That's fair provision. Yeah. If you've got a general.
Yes. That was the last of the 13s. Okay. Councillor Staunton, just for your information, those recommendations were all covered. Awesome. And the commentary around them was what a wonderful initiative it is, that collaboration between both the Chamber and the Ministers Association, and and thank you on behalf of the community for everybody involved. Item 14 is the environment and infrastructure reports. They're in nil. 15 is a confidential council committee reports and minutes. They're in nil. And then we move to 16, the confidential reports. So for us to discuss this item, recommendation is that we move into confidence for those reasons mentioned. I guess they're in the motion.
And I'll just declare a general conflict of interest just as a user of the facility, and I also am one of the administrators of the Jenny Paul Community Facebook page. But I'll stay in the meeting and vote, as I have no.
Yeah. Thank you.
So through the matter, the recommendation is to go into confidence on the basis that there could be litigation. Now, it's still reasonable to think that there could be litigation, and until such time the council decides that, you know, it's not viable, then we should keep this information confidential.
Thank you. Can I have a mover that we move into confidence? Councillor Staunton, and a seconder, Councillor Hollenby. Agreed. Thank you. Carried. So I might now leave this report to.
We will stop that, yes.
Good idea. Thank you, Councillor Lee.